Hello ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, cats and dogs, and freaks of nature of all ages. My name is Brian Bad Hippie Jackson, and welcome to my channel. Welcome back to Let's Build Treasures of the Dead in UDK. Now what we're going to be doing today is putting in the last of our doors, our gates in level 1, and getting into working with our Kismet and our Matinee. So I want to put a door right here. And the door switch for said door is going to go right here. So we're going to start with simple stuff. Now I could just select an existing gate and drag off a copy and put it in, but I think what I'm going to do instead is I'm going to pop open my content browser, I'm going to go to meshes, and I'm going to select this gate. Now this gate actually came from a package that was bundled with UDK, but since I don't want to do any alterations to the default stuff in UDK, I made a copy of this gate, I made a copy of this gate, and I made a copy of this wall switch, which is actually really freaking large because it is actually a piece of roof trim, but it works really good for a wall switch. So we're going to select this gate and we're just going to drag it right there where we're going to need it. Now we're going to hit the arrow A to go to actor. And as we can see from this side view and front view, it's setting way too high. So we're going to zoom that in a little bit, and we're going to bring our gate down right about there. And then we're going to hit non-uniform scale, and we're going to scale it up. Let's go ahead and bring our snap grid back down to 16, and we're going to scale it up just a wee tad, so that it fits in that doorway a little bit better. Let's go ahead and pull that up just a little bit so we got a little bit more room down here, and then we're going to move it down, and there we go. Now it fits in the doorway much better. Now we're going to go up into this top view. We're going to hit rotate, and we're going to rotate it by 90 degrees so that it fits inside the doorway. Now if we take a look at it, we can see it's just a tad too wide. So we're going to go ahead and hit non-uniform scale, and we're going to scale that down so that it still touches the walls, but it's not too wide. And that's exactly where we need it. But we don't need that realistic texture on it. So we're going to open our content browser. We're going to go to materials, and we're going to select our wood texture, and yeah, that's the one we want, I believe, hopefully. Yeah, no, actually this is a cartoon stuff. In the level 2 we'll do the wood texture, but we're doing cartoon here. So what we're going to do is go to cartoon textures that I have in. We're going to go all the way down to the bottom where we have wood. And if I remember correctly, I used that texture for our gates. Yep, that is the one I believe. Let's go find another gate and make sure. There's a gate. Yeah, that's the same texture. Okay. So we got that right. So there's our gate. Now what we need to do is put a switch on the wall. So we're going to go back into meshes. We're going to grab this wall switch, which is actually a roof trim, and we're going to put it right there. And as you can see, it's freaking huge. So we're going to go ahead and select materials, cartoon, and this is the texture I was using for those, and we're just going to drag it straight onto that mesh. Boom, done deal. Alright, now we really need to scale this down. So we're going to move it just a little bit away from the wall. We're going to go down here to draw scale, and we're going to set that to 0.25, and that's going to give us the scale we want. Now we're going to move it over so it's pretty much centered on that wall. We're going to grab our side view here. We're going to click rotate, and we're going to rotate by 90 degrees. Then we're going to grab our translation again, and we're going to move that right up against the wall. Okay. And I think we might want to make it a little higher. So we're going to move it up right about there. That'll work. Okay, so now that we have that gate and that switch put in, we can start animating them. But they're just static meshes right now, and static meshes will not animate. We have to convert them into a movable mesh. So we're going to right click on the gate, we're going to go down to convert, and we're going to convert static mesh actor to mover. And then we're going to do the same thing for our switch, right click, convert to mover. Now they are interp actors and they will move. So it's time to start animating this gate and this switch. So we're going to open our Kismet. We're going to go to door switches, and we're going to be creating door switch 08. And I told you in the last episode I would show you how to set up these folders to keep everything nice and neat. So we're going to go ahead and do that as we do this. Now I could just open up one of these, copy the Kismet, paste the Kismet, and be good to go, but we need to know how to do this, so I'm going to start from scratch. Alright, so what we're going to do is we're going to need a trigger zone. So we're going to right click, we're going to go to add actor, and we're going to add trigger. And that is going to put our trigger zone right there in front of our switch. We're going to center it up on the switch as best we can. Let's pull this down to 8 real quick. Zoom in on the switch a bit because it's still a little off center, and let's move it over. There we go. Now we take that back to 16 to make our snap grid a little bit bigger. We're going to grab our switch, we're going to hit F4, or our trigger, we're going to hit F4 to get into the properties. We're going to leave the height at 40, and we're going to change the radius to 64. And that is going to center our trigger up pretty much perfectly with the width of that switch, so that whenever we touch that trigger we will be able to operate that switch and operate the door. So now we're going to bring our Kismet back up, and we're going to right click, and we're going to create new event using trigger 34, and that's going to be a touch event. We're going to right click and create new event using trigger 34, and that is going to be a used event. The reason we're creating 2 events on the trigger is because we need the touch event to bring up our prompt to tell us which key to push to use the switch, and then we need the used event so that when we push that key the matinee will work properly. So we're going to right click, new action, and we're going to go all the way down to voice announcements, and we're going to select play announcement. We're going to take the touch event and plug it into that, and we don't need to change anything on touch. In fact, we don't even need to change the max trigger count because we should only have to use that trigger 1 time. If we die and respawn after we've used that trigger, it will have saved that, and that gate will still be open. So we only need this gate to work 1 time, so we don't have to change that. Same thing with the used event. We don't need to change our max trigger count, but what we do need to change is by default on the triggers, aim to interact is active, and in a top-down view you cannot aim at the trigger, so we need to turn that off. Okay, so now we've got our announcement, and we're going to go down to announcement text, and we're going to type in press E to use, so that whenever we touch that trigger it'll tell us what button to push. Now we need to create our matinee. So we're going to right click and create new matinee. We're going to select this switch, and then we're going to open our matinee. We're going to zoom this out just a little bit so we can see it a tad better. There we go. Now with that selected, we're going to right click and we're going to add new empty group. We're going to name that group switch. And now we have a group that includes that switch. We're going to right click inside switch and add new movement track. Now I already know from doing this before how long I need things to last. Alright, so we're going to take this little bad boy here and we're going to move it out to about 3.5 to 4 seconds just so that we have space to work with. Okay. Now we have our first keyframe for this already in by default, which is our starting position. So we're going to take our slider, we're going to move it to 0.5, 0.25. Alright, and we're going to hit enter to add a keyframe. We're going to right click on that, set time, and make sure that we're at 0.25 even. Alright, so we're at 0.25 on that keyframe. Now we're going to grab our switch and we're going to move it down to where it needs to be. And if we go back to stop, it'll take us to key 1. If we hit play, our switch moves. And actually, let's go ahead and set that time to 0.5. There we go. So the switch is set to 0.5. Now we're going to go back to 0. We're going to grab our gate and select it. We're going to add a new empty group and we're going to call it gate. And then we're going to add a new movement track. It will automatically create the first keyframe. So now we're going to select our second keyframe, okay, which is the end of our switch movement. And we don't want our door moving until after our switch is finished moving, so we're going to select, oh crap, I think what I did, let's hit set time, 0.25, yeah, I created an extra one, so let's delete that one. Alright, because I had the movement track on the switch selected instead of the movement track on the gate. So we're going to grab the movement track on the gate, we're going to push enter, and that's going to create our second keyframe. We're not going to change the location of the gate there because we don't want the gate to start moving until after the switch has finished moving. Now it should take approximately a second, I believe, for that gate to raise. So we're going to go to 1.5. We're going to hit enter. We're going to right click on that to make sure that we're at the right time, and we're at 1.49. Hit 1.5, okay. And then we're going to grab our gate and we're going to move it up to where we need it to be. Go back to the beginning, the switch moves, the gate moves. Let's go ahead and select this, and we've moved it up just a tad too high. Let's drop it down 1, back to 0, switch moves, gate moves. Okay, now we need to add in some sound. So what we're going to do real quick is we're going to close out that, and we're going to grab just one of the random door switches. We're going to open up the Matinee, and down here in sound we're going to select our first sound, which is our switch operating. We're going to right click and we're going to find that sound in the content browser. Okay? There we go. And we can now back out of that Kismet and open up this matinee. We're going to right click, add new empty group, call it sound, enter, and we're going to add a new soundtrack. Now let's minimize that. Grab our content browser with that sound cue selected in the content browser. We're going to leave it on first frame. We're going to hit enter, and that is going to put that sound in there for our door switch. Okay. Now what we're going to do, wrong button. Now what we're going to do is go ahead and pop open this other door switch again, open up this matinee, select the second sound that we've used, right click, find in content browser, and that is the sound of the gate opening. So we can go ahead and close that matinee. We can minimize our content browser. Let's reopen. Oh, that's the wrong matinee. Let's go back. There we go. That's the one we want. We're going to open that up. We're going to go to our second keyframe. We're going to select our soundtrack. We're going to push enter, and it's going to put in the vehicle surface tire wood cue because it's a wood gate that's opening, so that's what we're using. Now, if we want this to stop at this cue where the gate's opened, we're going to select that. Then we're going to grab this little green doohickey. Ah, crap. There we go. It went to that. We're going to grab either one. We're going to move to longest track endpoint. That is completely wrong. Longest. It went to the longest track endpoint because there's sound, so I screwed that up. So let's zoom it way out. Go to the end. And it's going to take a little, shit. Let's go back to the beginning. There we go. All right. We're going to zoom that back in a little bit. And we're going to select that. All right, so that's going to be our end point. We're going to zoom out as far as we can go, and we're going to go to the end, because I screwed the pooch there. Oop, okay, there it is. Now we're going to select this green one, right click, move to longest selected track endpoint, right click, longest selected track endpoint. That's going to take us right back there. And now our sequence stops at 1.5, which is exactly what we want. So if we hit stop to rewind it, we've got our sound placed in. If we hit play, our switch works with sound and our gate works with sound. All right, now we need to connect this used to play. And that's pretty much going to do it for that door and that door switch. But we still need to set up the subfolder. So we're going to hold Control and Alt, and we're going to drag a box around everything. Then we're just going to pick a random place inside one of our objects. We're going to right click, and we're going to create new sequence, and we're going to call this sequence door underscore switch underscore 08. And now we have everything nice and neat. Because like I said, in one of the other videos, when you're first starting out, the Kismet doesn't look that imposing. But once you start building a whole level with all kinds of different Kismet, we have our player startup Kismet there, which is fairly large within itself. We have all of our treasure chests with all of that Kismet. We have all of our loose treasure on the floor, and all of those are independent Kismet sequences. We have all of our door switches and doors. We have our locking doors. There's only one in the level, but we still have one. We have all of our checkpoints. We have all of our blood wall traps. We have our teleporters. And we have our health pickups. So if this stuff, and I do need to rename one of these to, I forget which gold one it is that I've changed to red. So let's go ahead and grab the interp actor, select it in level, go to actor, and that's the one I need to change to red. So we're going to take gold 01, we're going to right click, we're going to rename, and we're going to just go ahead and rename it red 2, because we have a red 0, so actually let's just rename it red 1. We have a red 0, so let's go ahead and get a red 1. Alright, and put that underneath the red. And then this gold 02, we're going to rename, and we're just going to call it gold 1, because that's the only gold in the level. Alright, so that's renamed, so everything is easily locatable. But this is why we want to keep our Kismet nice and clean and organized, because if we don't, then all of that Kismet laying around loose is going to make things incredibly hard to debug. Okay, so let's select trigger 34 in level, go to trigger, and there we are right there. Now if we pop back this way just a little bit, right here will work just fine. We can right click, play from here. It's going to tell us lights need to be rebuilt because we just put in new meshes. But we can pick up this treasure. We can grab this health pickup if we're wounded. And then we get here and we can hit this switch and it will open the door. Now the only other thing that we need to add in for that is a light. We want a light by that switch. So we're going to go find another door switch. There's one right there. We're going to grab the light that we've already got placed in because it's already set properly. If we look at our F4, it's at a 256 with a brightness of 1, which is just fine. We're going to hold Alt. We're going to drag off a copy, and we're going to place that one right there by that door switch. Which is also going to create another reason that we're going to have to rebuild our lighting. So we can click on the floor there, press play from here, which will allow us to, I think we need to go this way. Yeah. And we can run over that treasure, pick it up. We can pick up the treasure in this chest. We can grab our health. And our point light that we just put in is not going to show up until we rebuild our lighting. So let's go ahead and do that real quick. Alright, we got the light built. There we go. So we can right click and play from here. And our lighting is good, and that point light for that gate shows up. Now there is one more thing we need to do, because when you bring in a static mesh that already has collision attached to it, which these gates do, they will collide and you won't be able to do it, and you won't be able to get through it. But when you change it to a mover, it gets rid of the collision. So that gate is pretty much useless because it doesn't have any collision. So we need to add collision to that gate. So let's go ahead and go up to the gate, select it, right click, and then set collision type to block all. And that will make it so that we can't move through that gate. So if we go up here, right click, play from here, we've got the treasure pickups work. That works. I just like going over this stuff because it's cool. The health works, and then we go up to this, press E to use. Well, before we press E to use, and it won't give us that prompt again because that touch trigger is only a one-time use. But now the gate will block our passage. Then we press E to use, and the gate opens. There we go. Just like that. Now I'm only going to put in like 1 or 2 more gates, and I don't think the gates I'm going to put in, because I think I'm going to put one right here, and I will probably put one right here, maybe. I'm not sure. But we're only going to put in 1 or 2 more gates, and they're not going to need a camera switch. So when we get to the point in the game where we have to put in another gate that's going to need a camera switch, that'll be in level 2, and we'll worry about that then. So that's going to be good for this episode because we've learned how to put in a gate, a switch, how to use the matinee to animate them, how to make sure that our gate has collision, and all that kind of good stuff. And it's pretty far out groovy and right on. In the next episode, we're going to throw in another trap, and I'm going to show you guys how to create a spike trap between these 2 walls to make these treasure chests a little bit more challenging to get to. So let's go ahead and save our level, save current level, and we're going to call that good on this episode. So please do not forget to check the links in the description below for the Disabled American Veterans and the Wounded Warriors Project. Let's please help support our veterans. If you liked the video, then hit the like button, subscribe, and share. Tell your friends and family to hit the like button, subscribe, and share. Please do not forget to leave me a comment. They're always welcome, good, bad, or somewhere in between. Thank you very much for watching. I greatly appreciate your support. And until next time, this is Brian Bad Hippie Jackson saying peace, love, clean underwear, and happy gaming.